This is Punk Rock and Politics, and today is November 28th, 2017, and this is episode number 44. Let's do this.
These days are strange, it's true.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
If you think that punk rock doesn't mix with politics, you're wrong.
Welcome to Punk Rock and Politics. Today we'll be talking with vocalist Paul Mason from the British-based band The Vile Assembly about what a President Trump looks like from the UK, the corporate media's agenda, and what the future holds for Jeremy Corbyn's progressive movement.
My main thing about people, humans who are voting for Donald Trump, why would people want to put in power a billionaire who is completely disconnected from the main people within the American society? And it's the same in the English society when we've got trees in power. These are people that are completely disconnected from ourselves because they live a completely different lifestyle and live in a completely different way. How can they know what our needs are? How can Donald Trump know what our needs are?
So, let's get to the political mosh pit. But first, here's the news of the week.
Here's what's making news.
They call her Pocahontas.
House Republicans plan on removing the Johnson Amendment in the House's version of the tax bill, which includes a proposal to modify the Johnson Amendment. If modified, it would make it legal for religious organizations to endorse candidates, and they will not lose their tax exemption. The repeal of the amendment would also allow nonprofits and religious organizations to donate money to a political candidate or political party. The Johnson Amendment has been in effect for 63 years. And Amazon's founder, creator, and real-life supervillain Jeff Bezos is now the world's richest person with over $100 billion, and I'm sure his wealth will be trickling down to us peasants any day now. A slave trade has been discovered in Libya. The war-ravished country of Libya is facing famine, civil war, and now a slave trade. Libya's descent into chaos started shortly after former President Obama ordered the killing of Muammar Gaddafi, the leader of Libya, in 2011. Footage was released showing sub-Saharan Africans being auctioned for farm work. The UN has launched an investigation into this issue. Just another reason why war is never the solution and should always be avoided at all costs. In other international war news, the US's military-industrial complex and Britain's-backed Saudi Arabia continues their genocide in Yemen. The Yemen civil war has been ongoing since 2015 between the US-supported Yemeni government versus the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. Since 2015, an estimated 10,000 people, 5,000 of which civilians, have been killed in this proxy war. Democratic Representative John Conyers is stepping down as the ranking Democratic member of the House Judiciary Committee due to sexual assault allegations. And on Meet the Press, Nancy Pelosi showed her blatant hypocrisy. Here's the clip.
We are strengthened by due process. Just because someone is accused. And was it one accusation? Is it two? I think there has to be. John Conyers is an icon in our country. He has done a great deal to protect women, Violence Against Women Act, which the right wing is now quoting me as praising him for his work on that, and he did great work on that. But the fact is, as John reviews his case, which he knows, which I don't, I believe he will do. I believe that he will. Excuse me, may I finish my sentence? Sure. That he will do the right thing.
And is the right thing what? Resign?
He will do the right thing in terms of what he knows about his situation, that he's entitled to due process, but women are entitled to due process as well.
But he took advantage of a situation but he got to hide his settlement. He got to, his accusers had to go through all sorts of craziness. So why is he entitled to new due process in this case?
No, we are talking about what we have heard. I've asked the ethics committee to review that.
Yeah.
He has said he'd be open. It will cooperate with any review. Excuse me?
Do you believe John Conyers is accused?
I don't know who they are. Do you? They have not really come forward. And that gets
So you don't know if you believe the accusations?
That's for the ethics committee to review. But I believe he understands what is at stake here, and he will do the right thing. But all of these non-disclosure agreements have to go. And by the way, some of them are there to protect the victim because they didn't want some of it to be public. But that's over. In other words, if the victim wants to be private, she can be. He or she can be.
On Black Friday, the FBI received over 200,000 requests for background checks for the purchase of guns and ammunition, making firearms the #1 item sold this Black Friday. Consumerism and guns. How American. The national embarrassment, also known as President Trump, managed to use a racial slur during a ceremony to honor the Navajo Code Talkers. The Navajo Code Talkers were instrumental in helping the U.S. win World War II, using their unbreakable language for communication. Oh, and Trump managed to do all this in front of a portrait of the former president Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson, who is responsible for the Trail of Tears, which killed over 4,000 Cherokee indigenous peoples. Here's the embarrassment. I mean, President.
And I just want to thank you because you're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you because you are special. You are special people. You are really incredible people, and I have to, from the heart, from the absolute heart, we appreciate what you've done, how you've done it, the bravery that you displayed, and the love that you have for your country.
Oh, geez. And here's one of the adult daycare workers, I mean, the press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, on President Trump's comments.
The event that the president just did with the Navajo Code Talkers, he referred to Pocahontas being in the Senate. Why did he feel the need to say something that is offensive to many people while honoring the Navajo Code Talkers, these genuine American
I think
heroes?
What most people find offensive is Senator Warren lying about her heritage to advance her career.
Now, she said it was a racial slur. She said it was a racial slur. What is your response to that?
I think that's a ridiculous response.
Let me
Stephen.
just follow up with that, because the president was speaking at an event to honor members of the greatest generation, people who fought in World War II, who are in their 80s and 90s now. And the moment had many people online asking whether the president lacks decency. What's your response to that notion?
Look, I think the president certainly finds an extreme amount of value and respect for these individuals, which is why he brought them and invited them to come to the White House and spent time with them, recognizing them and honoring them today. So I think he is constantly showing ways to honor those individuals, and he invited them here at the White House today to meet with them and to also remind everybody about what the historic role that they played many years ago. Kristen.
Why is it appropriate for the president to use a racial slur in any context?
I don't believe that it is appropriate for him to make a racial slur or anybody else.
This is racial slur, so why is it appropriate for him to use
I think,
that?
like I said, I don't think that it is, and I don't think that was certainly not the president's intent.
Just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. Oh, and on this day in rock history, November 28th, 1976, the Sex Pistols appeared on the BBC program Nationwide in the UK. And that's the news of the week. What is up, my fellow political junkies? In today's episode of the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, we're going to go across the pond, as they say, and we'll be talking with Paul Mason, the vocalist from the British-based band The Vile Assembly. The Vile Assembly was created when three lifelong friends decided to form a political-based punk band. And as they say, the band was created solely to be the whistleblowers on unjust society. Their purpose, to say what needs to be said through the universally understood medium of music. And I couldn't agree more. The Vile Assembly is a fresh dose of in-depth political and social poetry that is layered over solid classic punk with a new electronic overtones. Their debut album, titled Flattened by the Horrors of War, lyrically is amazing in the context of a political activist, but the music can also stand alone. The album is a roller coaster of emotions fueled from war, religion, and social isolation. Needless to say, the Vile Assembly gets a 100% recommendation from the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, and that's why I was honored to talk with the vocalist from the band, Paul Mason. But before we get to the interview, let's check out one of their songs. Here's Suicide Feast by the Vile Assembly.
I'm trying
was Suicide Feast by the Vile Assembly. And I have Paul Mason, the vocalist for the band, here on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast. What's up, Paul? And thanks for coming on.
Okay, good. Yeah, nice to speak to you, Michael. What is it you want to talk about?
Yeah, definitely. It was we actually met on Twitter. I think I was like fucking with Trump or something, but we came across Twitter and I listened to your music. I really dig your music, and you guys are kind of in the same political realm, I would think, as me and a lot of the listeners. And you guys, the Vile Assembly is a British-based punk band, and you guys are actually based out of Liverpool, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Cool. And so it was you, and then it was Mark Webb and Mark Wainwright. Those are the two other members of the band. And you guys just kind of started up the band more recently, but you all have known each other for quite a while, right?
Yes, and we've known each other since childhood. And, you know, music's always been the thing that has kind of sewn us together. So the seams are sewn together through music. You know, that's how our friendship's mainly been built since we were probably about 4 years of age.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you guys knew each other that long. But you, on your website, I was reading you guys actually never really made music together, but you had a recording studio and everything.
Yeah, that's right. The idea was, I mean, I used to make music quite some time ago, but ended up going down the route of maybe drinking too much and maybe doing a bit too much of other things. So I kind of got out of the kind of making music side, but carried on listening to it and just maybe tidied up a lot of my life. And then we sat down one day and said, what's going on with the music that we're listening to? You know, nobody's really saying too much in songs nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I still had lots to say. So
yeah, that's kind of what gave birth to the Vile Assembly.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was just almost like come on, it's time now for us to start saying really what we've always wanted to say, and people are prepared to listen.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really like is when bands, the lyrics are, you know, very deep and they have a lot to say. And I was listening over to quite a few of the songs, and the lyrics, a lot of them, it's very heavy and it's very political. It's also kind of religious because, you know, we talk about Jesus and poverty and then also the Pope in one song. So I really like that. And that's one thing the podcast, we love featuring bands who have a political message. So this totally fits awesome. So let's play one more and then we'll get to the political mosh pit and talk about some politics and world events. So here's Body Bags by the Vile Assembly.
They're gonna bring you down, and they don't want you to think. They're gonna bring you down, and they don't want you to say. They're gonna bring you down.
that was Body Bags by the Vile Assembly. And all right, Paul, let's get to the political mosh pit. So here up close in America, viewing Trump is one thing. It's almost like, it's right there. And then, but I would only imagine out in the UK, it's a whole nother experience. So what's your view of Trump from afar?
Wow. Well, I mean, and that's a big one. Let me think how I start with this, because when I see him on the TV, when I listen to what he says, I mean, I think he's one of the greatest comedy acts I've ever seen. The things that comes out of his mouth, I just think is incredible. And I'm thinking he's got to be a weapon of mass distraction. He has to be, because there's no way that this man can say these things and be the leader of the free world.
Mm-hmm. Did you see his tweet? Speaking of Twitter, because I know you have the Vile Assembly, and you guys are actively on Twitter. Did you see his recent tweet with Kim Jong-un? How he called me old, so I don't want to call him short and fat. Did you see that tweet?
Yeah, I mean, it's comedy.
Yeah,
it's pure comedy. When I listen to that, I think there's got to be a comedy writer sat behind Trump writing these responses. I don't think he's that intelligent to come up with that kind of comedy, because you need to be pretty clever to be coming out with that kind of comedy that he comes out with.
And
so
it's constantly.
Yeah, I mean, when he told that reporter, that I think that, I am a humble man. I think you probably find I'm the most humble man you've ever met. That is just, if one of the leading comedians in the world wrote that, we would be crying at his feet with laughter. Donald Trump says it. And
the guy with a gold house, right? Like gold-plated room and gold-plated chair. Yeah. He's like, I'm a humble guy. I'm only the best humble guy, but I'm a humble guy.
so there's a part of me that loves him for that, but I completely despise him as a human being.
Yeah.
I despise everything about him. I despise his face, his hair. I despise everything about Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, one thing I haven't gotten, I mean, I kind of understood a lot of why people did support him, some of them, but a lot of the stuff that he's done has just been feeding the neocon, feeding the machine. He said, quote unquote, he's going to drain the swamp, but yet he put Goldman Sachs executives into his cabinet. And all the bullshit he said is totally a lie. But recently with this elephant ban. So trophy elephants, people can still hunt trophy elephants in Zimbabwe now and legally bring them back. That was a executive order Obama put in that it would make it illegal, but now it's legal to do that. It's just like, that's fucking crazy. That's sick. Why would a human being do that?
Yeah. Why would the leader of the free world promote it?
Yeah, and it's like, isn't there more important things to do than, focus? Oh, we need to lift a ban. We really need our trophy hunters bringing it. It helps the economy, or I don't even understand the justification on that.
Well, my main thing about humans who are voting for Donald Trump, why would people want to put in power a billionaire who is completely disconnected from anybody who, the main people within the American society, and it's the same in the English society where we've got trees in power. These are people that are completely disconnected from ourselves because they live a completely different lifestyle and live in a completely different way. How can they know what our needs are? How can Donald Trump know what our needs are?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He has no idea. I mean, he's listening to Ivanka Trump, his daughter, about childcare needs. And, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, $1,000 will help him out. But it's like, no, actually, here in the States, I don't know about in the UK, but here, it's pretty much like one person's wage to do full-time childcare. So if, the mother or the father, you might as well not even work. You have to stay at home with the child. I'm sure you guys have a lot more liberal policies in that regard.
Yeah, we have a similar situation in this country. One of the biggest things I've noticed in this country is people are maybe 1 to 2 paychecks away from being homeless.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When I see that, and then you see the likes of Theresa May and Donald Trump in power, and you see that there's absolutely no chance on this earth that they're ever going to be homeless. And you look at the likes of the Queen, who's investing the money she's taken off the taxpayers and investing that offshore to make even more money, where she could take all the money she had in her account and feed every single person that was homeless and starving in this country and still have money left over.
Yeah. And it's really interesting you say that too, because they do the, in 2008, when they did the bank bailouts, they did $700 billion to the banks, who basically paid their executives, created this, fixed the problem, but they didn't actually put anyone in jail or anything, where they could have given that $700 billion to every man, woman, child. It would have been $50,000 each person or something crazy like that. And that would have fueled the economy way better than just giving us all that money directly to the banks. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but they want to keep the system going, it almost seems.
Yeah, but by fueling the economy through the people means that the ruling classes are going to take less money, and there's absolutely no way that they're prepared to take any less money. They want every single penny that they can get hold of. And if that means that they have to put as many people homeless so that they can keep their riches, that's exactly what they would do.
Yeah, and that's totally true. And here in the U.S., especially, I'm here in Southern California, it's exactly like you said. People are 1, maybe 2 paychecks away from bankruptcy or living on the street. And actually here in San Diego, there's a huge homeless epidemic in all of California, because there's just the rent price is just ridiculous. And then also we have a lot of veterans with mental PTSD problems that we're not help treating. But it's almost like we push all these things aside, and Trump is the sideshow that CNN and the news media. And then I don't know how BBC is, but here in America, the news, they're just constantly talking about what Trump said, what this person said, and they don't actually talk about these actual issues, about homelessness or about the wealth disparity, about, because the top 1% now owns more than the bottom 50%. But the news doesn't really talk about that.
I mean, the news isn't going to talk about that because the people who own the media outlets, the ruling classes, and it's their money.
Yeah, exactly. And they actually passed here in America, which is horrible. They passed now a lot of the media conglomerates. They can own 2 stations in one area, where before you can only own 1 station in a certain broadcasting district, but now you can own more than 1. So it's just going to consolidate the news media like even more.
Yeah, the fear kind of, the fear merry-go-round that goes on in the media is incredible. But yet, we don't necessarily see them talking about how they should be helping the homeless, how they should be helping the people on the streets. It's almost like that the homeless have become a drain on society. Mm-hmm. I read a news report today that the council officials in certain areas are going to look at, because the homeless situation in the UK now is at the highest level it's ever been.
Oh, wow.
And the homeless people now are getting tents on the streets.
Yeah.
And what the councils are saying, that they're now looking at passing a bill where they're going to be able to fine them £1,000 for sleeping in a tent on the street. Yeah. Well, my answer to that, whether you're going to send the fine,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or you're going to post that.
They're doing the exact same thing here. The exact same thing. They're giving them tickets. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and then eventually, if you get so many tickets, you could get arrested. And that's, but then you arrest them and put them in jail, and then you're going to have to pay for their room and board anyways.
Well, and in the UK now, the jails are owned by private equity companies, so they need to make sure that the jails are full. As long as the jails are full, the investors are getting their paycheck and their dividend business. most incredible merry-go-round ever. Every single stop, the private investors, the ruling classes, the people with the riches are getting even more and more money, while the people without are digging further and further into poverty.
Yeah, the gap is just growing. It's growing exponentially now at this point. And I always enjoy talking. I believe you're the third band that I've had on now from the UK, and I always enjoy talking to musicians and artists from over there in the UK, because I find our political worlds are just, it's so much identical. What's going on? It's not exactly the same, but it's very close. I mean, because you have not Margaret Thatcher. I was going to say Theresa May, who's like a Margaret Thatcher kind of wannabe. She can't even be Margaret Thatcher, but she wants to be. And then you have Jeremy Corbyn, and you also have Bernie Sanders, which I've always been a big Bernie Sanders supporter. And then over there, which he fell short over here of really taking over the Democratic Party and pushing our party's left. So we're going further and further right. But you guys, Corbyn did get a little bit of a win. And so what's your thoughts on Corbyn and the recent election? I guess it was quite a few months ago, almost a year ago now, that Corbyn won.
Well, the media completely tried to ruin Corbyn's campaign over here.
Yes.
And you would have thought the way that the media were presenting it to the public, it was going to be a complete landslide. So the fact that Corbyn came out of this with a high level of credibility means that the job that he's doing is fantastic. Mm-hmm. You can't knock somebody that's saying his most important policy is peace.
They'll try.
But his most important policy is peace. Yeah. And that's the thing that he wants the country to strive for. I mean, I spoke to my partner today, Nina, and we were saying, I think peace, it should be made as a law now. If you don't give peace, you're breaking the law and liable for the rest.
It's pretty, it's pretty simple. I like it.
That's simple. Yeah. We've got like a few different laws. Love, you've got to give love. And if you don't give love out to people, you're going to be arrested. Mm-hmm. The law.
But like you said, it's the merry-go-round, because you have companies like Lockheed Martin and Boeing who are making they're making money off of drones and off of bombs that are being waged in the Middle East and all over, and then they send their generals onto these news stations that you totally correctly pointed out that are owned by the same corporations more or less. So it's almost propaganda being fueled by these corporations to keep this perpetual war going on. Because, we've been at war since 2001, and I don't think a lot of people kind of ever put that in context or realize that.
Yeah, I recognize that the way these main companies are wanting, the main corporate organizations are wanting the working classes, they want us to be a completely disconnected society. So if we are disconnected, it will allow us to become, disconnected from other humans. It means that we will become more and more stupid. And the more stupid we become, the more that they can do, the more that they can get away with. And the more that they can get away with, the more that they'll earn. You got to remember, peace doesn't make money.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's as simple as that. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So how do we break this cycle? How do we end it? You're out there playing music and writing awesome lyrics and trying to wake people up, but as a society, I always like to pull back and look at it as a big society, look at the big issues. So how do you think as a society we can change this?
Well, we need to reconnect back to humans. When I got this concept that when we were born, our main thing was our connection to our mother, which meant that was our main priority in life, was to connect with humans. And then somewhere along the way, we've become disconnected, we've lost trust, we've been hurt, we've been let down by other humans for whatever reasons, schooling, jobs. They create this complete disconnection in you and other humans. And what we'll then do is try to connect to whatever we possibly can, be it chemical, gambling, drugs, alcohol. We'll connect to them and we'll stay connected to them because we're constantly looking for connection. What we've got to do is realize that there's the likes of addiction and things like that. Yeah, they are big issues, but the way you break the cycle of addiction is by allowing someone to reconnect back to a human. And if everybody reconnected back to humans, the world would be a much more peaceful, loved place to live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think that. And I think people yearn for that connection. They want that connection with people. But I've seen with social media, they're using social media trying to get a connection, but it's kind of a false sense of connection. Do you see that as well? I mean, there's positives in social media and the internet, no doubt. However, I think because you would think if you connect more with people online through social media, you would become more connected. But there's been a lot of studies that's come out saying that teen youth who uses social media, they have a higher rate of depression. And then there's also other studies that show getting likes with social media is kind of like a dopamine high for teenagers, especially. So I think people are yearning for this connection that you're talking about, but we're trying to do it through social media, which I'm not bashing at all because we're having a great dialogue, across the world right now, which social media is awesome. That's how we met, but it's like a double-edged sword. Because, do you see what I'm saying? We're kind of moving in that direction. Trump's tweeting all the time. So I don't know. I think you're right. But how do we promote that real connection?
Well, if I notice that when I'm, on the street, the amount of people that are constantly looking down, nobody's looking at each other. Everybody's looking at this little square piece of plastic that they've got in their hand. And that's their connection. And, I suppose in a way I'm exactly the same. I am connected to my mobile phone, which has got linked up to Twitter, Facebook.
No, me too. Yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah.
There's no reality. It's a completely false reality. There's no reality to that. The reality is that I am surrounded by humans that I love and humans that love me. And why would I want to ignore that by being completely soaked into this fake reality? I think we need, readdress our understanding of reality and our understanding of love. And if we readdress that, we'd find that most of the things that we're doing on anti-social media are pointless.
Mm-hmm. Anti-social media.
Yeah,
I like
it's
that.
Pointless. It's a complete non-entity. What would be the point in waiting for somebody to like you that you don't know? I imagine that there's a chance that if you met this person that likes what you're saying, you may not like them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, and then we're fueling it too, because now we have Trump in office, who he's tweeting all the time, which is. So there's people who are actively always checking Twitter now just to get the update, and it's kind of fueling this cycle, I suppose.
Yeah, and we've got to recognize, I think, that pretty much everything on the media that we're seeing, like the media outlets, is bullshit.
The corporate media, yeah, definitely.
We can keep that inside ourselves every time we're watching the news or watching television, watching whatever program, as long as we can recognize, don't forget there's an agenda. And then once you keep that premise in your head, whoa, what am I watching? I'm watching this, but there's an agenda. Then maybe you'll start looking at things in a different way. I look at some things in a more comedic way, when really they are pretty serious, terrible things. But I'm looking at them in such a comedic way because I think, well, the agenda, I look at the agenda that's taken place and think, well, this is just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. This is something. If we think about the things that the media are allowing us to know, imagine the things that we don't.
Oh, yeah. And you said it perfectly. It's the media, it's their agenda. And before, I think you called it the fear merry-go-round. It's fear. They're selling fear because if people are afraid, they want someone to protect them, or they won't question the government or the system because they're afraid, or they'll be okay with the wiretapping or the surveillance on them because, well, we don't want the terrorists to get us now, do we?
Yeah. I mean, the terrorists, when I was a child, I was classed as a terrorist. The things that we did as a child, children knocking on people's doors and being a complete menace to the surrounding houses where we lived, we were known as the neighborhood terrorists. So what we've done with this word is we've just taken it and branched it out and made us think that there's actually a threat out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real threat out there, and we don't. I mean, what the media's tried to do is present it to us in this kind of faceless way that we don't understand what the threat is. But the threat's out there, and it's probably everything that's different to what I am. So it's a different color skin. It's got a different language. It wears different clothes. That's the threat. That's the person I've got to look out for. And I recognized in that American atrocity that took place in Las Vegas, where the guy shot
Las Vegas. Yeah,
he was a white American. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't classed as a terrorist. He was a white American. When they tried to link it to some sort of terrorist organization, the American government said no, he's not linked to any terrorist organization, because what would they be able to do? They'd have to tell every single person then, it's now not that foreign language, different coloured skin, different clothing wearing person. It's now your next door neighbour. The terrorist is now you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, then that's how it's become. Before, in 2001, they used Osama bin Laden. He was the boogeyman. They would put his picture up here in the States and, we got to get Osama bin Laden. We got to get Osama bin Laden. And then that kind of ended. They went to Saddam Hussein and all that. But like you said, then they created this terrorist, ISIS, or an anonymous terrorist. And they used that Jihad John guy and he basically had his face covered. So it's the anonymity in that, anyone in the Middle East who's brown can be a terrorist, so you must fear them. And then now with these, we have school shootings at churches, shootings at concerts, shootings at movie theaters. Here in America, it's pervasive. It's everywhere. It's in big towns, small towns. You can't escape it. So now, like you said, now the government is going to label or be able to label everyone as a potential terrorist because they've gotten everyone so scared.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I wrote the song Body Bags about. It's particularly about that subject, about when somebody just completely loses it, and they're losing it because of the amount of pressure, the amount of shit that this system is putting on them. And the only way that they feel that they can get out of it is by, losing their life and allowing other people to lose theirs too.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be, you have to be really, really detached from society and from humanity to be able to go out and just kill innocent people like that. And we need more medical people for them. We need stricter gun laws. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, but there's so many facets to that, and that always gets politicized, which is unfortunate. But it's like, it's not just terrorists, it's who's killing us, but they want to keep us afraid of everyone.
Biggest terrorist organization, if we're going to label anybody the terrorist, is the CIA.
Yeah.
CIA, the biggest organization in the world.
That's true. I mean, they are actually bringing in drugs into America to fund money for their Black Ops program. I mean, that's out. That's official news. I mean, the CIA, yeah. How many governments? And that's one thing. With this Russia thing that they're saying Russia hacked our democracy or our elections, but how many governments have we gone in and overthrown the dictator and put our own dictator in, or the CIA covertly overthrew them?
Well, yeah, and then when you're done with that dictator, you go in and kill him so he can't tell anybody about what's going on.
Yes, exactly. Like Gaddafi and Saddam. Exactly.
I mean, Saddam Hussein, they killed him, and then they said there was no weapons of mass destruction. So then that's then not killing him. That's murder.
Yeah, and invading a sovereign country that had nothing to do with 9/11. And now it's actually coming out that the Saudi government, which who would have thought 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudis, but now it's coming out that the Saudi government actually had more to do with 9/11 than any other country, which I don't see why that's a shock to anyone.
Oh, I don't think I'm not sure what would shock me now. Yeah, I'm not sure what would go on.
Yeah.
Nothing would shock me. I'm kind of set up for almost anything now.
That's a good mind state to be in going into 2018.
Yeah, I'm set up for it, but I'm set up for it in almost like a satirical way. Mm-hmm. It's got, not got any kind of reality base to it. It's pure satire. That's why Donald Trump, for me, when I seen him, I just thought, yeah, this is the guy that's gonna make politics comedy, which is going to allow us to keep laughing. And we'll be laughing while some real atrocities are taking place.
Yeah, just laughing all the way to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah, I mean, I read a story a couple of days ago about Bob Geldof when he was doing the Band-Aid, the Live Aid thing for Ethiopia. And he was fully aware and was fully told about the leader of Ethiopia at that time was carrying out mass genocide. And the people who were starving, they weren't starving from any natural cause. They were starving because their leader was starving them, in almost like a Marie Antoinette type of way. Uh-huh. And what he did then was he collected all this money. He hugged the leader of Ethiopia, gave him all these millions of pounds, and the leader of Ethiopia went and bought weapons from the Russians. Geldof knows. When you think that doesn't shock me.
Yeah, and a lot of people probably donated to that specifically thinking it was going to go to help.
And it helped the Ethiopian government buy their arms from the Russians.
Wow.
And when I hear that, I just think, I can accept that. Why should I be able to accept that? Surely me, a human in this society, should say that's an absolutely ludicrous story. There's no way Bob Geldof would get himself caught up in that or allow that to happen. But now, this in 2017, I'm saying, I can go with that. Yeah. That makes sense. And that's how twisted the system is now.
Yeah, it's almost it's like the masks are off. I was talking about that in the few episodes with another musician who's saying with Trump, his policies aren't really anything new. It's been the Republican policies to cut taxes for the rich and cut social programs. I mean, same thing over there with the conservatives. But Trump is there's no hiding it. He's just straight saying it. And same with the industry and corporations. It's just, we put our money overseas and, whatever. We don't pay taxes. Oh, if you want us to pay taxes, you need to lower the tax rate and then we'll bring our money back. It's like, wait, this shouldn't even be the discussion. So, it's crazy. It's this year has been insane, to say the least, I suppose.
Well, my partner told me today, and I remember this as being, I remember hearing this too, that in this country, in the UK, there was a law that meant that there had to be full employment for everybody. And that was a law that was in this country, and the changing of that law was changed by Margaret Thatcher.
Of course.
Yeah.
Your guys' Ronald Reagan.
Think of that and you think, well,
Yeah, it's been this decay and this just eating away at our public infrastructure ever since the 80s. And I don't think Obama or, over there, who is it? Like Tony Blair. He was basically kind of like our Bill Clinton. What did he really do? Bill Clinton didn't really do anything for the working class, just like Tony Blair. Almost he might as well have been a Republicans or a conservative.
We call Tony Blair Tony Blair. He's a Tony Blair. How can this man still be taken on the television? How can he still be interviewed on the television? But he's still on political television. He still has a political voice in this country. How can this happen? How can Bill Clinton still have a political voice in America?
I heard him talking against Jeremy Corbyn, and I was just blown away. I was thinking the same thing you are. You were in favor of the Iraq War. You shouldn't be anywhere on political punditry.
Anybody that's in favor of any war.
Well, any war, you're right, any war. But I mean, the fucking Iraq War, for God's sakes, that's just a lot of the people who are around the Iraq War, they need to be locked up for war crimes because, like you said, that was murder that was going into a sovereign country that had no connection with anything.
Yeah. I love terrorists now, and I think these terrorists are going into the killing people. If you're going to kill somebody, there's far better people to kill than the poor.
Yeah. Well, it's almost kind of like the terrorists are working for someone or pushing an agenda, like we were saying.
So it's the people if they want them, or who's worthy of, if they want to kill people.
Yeah.
Tony Blair's on the list. You think, well, he's got to be one that you've got to look at. So why would you kill the poor?
So what's the future of the Labour Party over there? Is it the Jeremy Corbyns or the Tony Blair?
Corbyn. Corbyn's going to be the next prime minister of this country.
Oh, really? You think he really?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
When would those elections be held?
I think we've got another couple of years before then, which is going to allow a lot of the policies that he wants to bring forward. He's going to allow us to see them, and then policies are going to make sense. Mm-hmm. He's making sense. Again, I revert back to he's saying, get rid of our weapons, get rid of our arms. And I'm like, yeah, get rid of them. Why do we want to promote war? Why do we want to promote death and killing?
Yeah. Well, and help the social safety net at the bottom. So, man, I hope you're right about that, Paul. I really do. But thanks for I'll coming on the podcast and talking. I really always enjoy, like I said earlier, getting a perspective from somewhere over in the UK or in any other country. If Corbyn does win, man, that gives me a lot of hope. I really hope you're right on that.
Well, the good thing, if Corbyn wins, these songs that I wrote, you can put them in the bin. And I'm cool with that.
Right.
I'm happy for
But the thing is, if Corbyn wins, or if we do get a Bernie Sanders-like socialist here in America, the number one thing what we liberals or progressives or anyone on the left have to do is that's the most important time to push them in the left direction, because we can't let I don't see Corbyn doing this, but someone like Obama got elected in on this wave of change, and then everyone just went to sleep and let him continue the same old policies, and that can't happen again. If we get people in there who are super progressive, we have to push them and make sure they hold up to those promises.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to exactly. As soon as somebody says this is what we're going to do, they've got to stand by that. Just like the worst thing that the Liberal Party, when they took leadership with the Tories the last time round, and they said that they weren't going to charge students for their education, then immediately changed it.
Yeah.
That way you've got to remember these are liars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they sell out right there.
They're lie to be in charge of the country, because being in charge of this country makes them good money.
Yes, I think, yeah, exactly. It all comes down to that. So awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, Paul. But before I let you go, though, what's the best way for anyone to find your music online?
You can find the music through all the main outlets, iTunes, Amazon. You can also go onto our website, www.barlassembly.co.uk, or you can find us on Twitter at barlassembly. You can also direct messages on Twitter. The direct messages come through to any one of the band, and we're happy to speak to anybody about any political thing, anything to do with the music. If you want it to be personal, please, you're wasting your time, because this isn't about me as a person. This is purely a political platform,
Yes.
to make sure that we can say the things that we think that need to be said, and we can do it in a musical format, and we can do it in a verbal format too.
Yeah.
I'm not that interested as a person.
But yeah, I think that's an awesome idea, and I really respect that you guys are doing that and you're putting a message behind the music, because that's one thing I really like to feature here on the podcast. So yeah, thanks a lot for doing that. And anyone who is active on Twitter and is political, definitely go follow Vile Assembly, because they always have some fun tweets and you can get some really cool comments and everything. So thanks a lot, Paul, for coming on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast.
See you, brother.
Definitely. All right, and here we go. On our way out, here's Voltaire by the Vile Assembly.
Which poses violence 'cause you never
Thanks for checking out Punk Rock and Politics. If you enjoyed the show and the information brought to you, please subscribe and share the podcast. It helps us here at Punk Rock and Politics, but more importantly, it helps the featured bands gain exposure. Also, if you know any bands or musicians who would like to join the political mosh pit and have their music featured on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, please email us at punkrockandpolitics@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. And rock on, political junkies.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives.
Doing a better job of talking to each other. The left hand now knows what the right hand is doing.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it. All right.